Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of our FPL show. It's Gameweek 12, I think, now. Just coming off the back of another boring international break. England scored 10 against a bunch of, dental hygienists and farmers and people like that. So it wasn't too interesting, but really looking forward to Gameweek 12. I'm joined by Rod.
Hello, hello, hello. Pleased to be here. Looking forward to Game Week 12 and saying goodbye to the international break.
Yeah, and it's just me and Rod again this week. Danny is on a hiatus, but I'm sure we'll see him again soon. But we're coming off Game Week 11, which was actually, you kind of forget about it, but it was actually a pretty decent game week. Obviously, mine and your teams lost. Rod, Villa losing against Southampton, United losing 2-0 against City. Pretty much expected. I think we're on a run of form. But some of the more interesting games were the Newcastle 1-1 draw against Brighton, Palace beating Wolves 2-2, Burnley and Chelsea 1-1, and the one that really stands out is the West Ham victory over Liverpool 3-2. Really fantastic game. Rod, it was an interesting game week, and how did you get on in game week 11 in terms of fantasy points?
You know what? I was expecting bigger. Started very well with the
So was she.
I started very well with two Cancelo assists, a clean sheet, 3 bonus, him finishing on 14 points. And then I thought that was going to set the tone, but then Chelsea conceding late to Burnley kind of put a spanner in the works. And then Jimenez blanking, Vardy blanking, Sanchez getting sent off, and finishing on a respectable 57. But that did lead to me getting an overall red arrow, so not great. How was yours, Chelsea? How did you do?
No, not great. I ended on 49 points. I was hoping for a bit more. If Rob Sanchez didn't go wandering while I was in the pub, we was losing our heads because Rob Sanchez went on a bit of a wander. To me, it looked like, I think it was Callum Wilson. It's hard to remember, but I'm pretty sure he dived. But he got Sanchez the red card, so that was really disappointing on the Saturday evening. In terms of some of the big boys, I did okay. Trent Alexander picking me up 12 points. Captain Salah was only managing 5, so 10 overall. Rafinha got 9, which was really decent, and James ended on 7 for me. But it's certain standouts like Robson only getting 1. I think he came off injured. Duffy only getting 2 points. Song getting 3, Mbuemo 2, Huang 2, Jesus 2, and then Sanchez was the -1. So it's kind of a bit of a theme in the team where, everyone kind of mediocre with a few standout players. But, I also lost 8 points last game week due to free transfers being made. But I think we'll move on for it. I'm pretty optimistic for the next game week 12. So let's just talk some football in the world of football. After a few, strange results, let's say, there's been a whole switch up of managers. Obviously, Newcastle got rid of Steve Bruce beforehand. They've now brought in Eddie Howe. The Villa loss against Southampton made them make a change. They got rid of Dean Smith, and they brought in Steven Gerrard for his first job in the Premier League. And then, to top it all off, Norwich, after getting their first win of the season 2-1 against Brightford away, decided to sack old Daniel Farker, and they brought in your old boss, Rod, Dean Smith. What did you think of the whole switch up throughout the international break?
So, post Southampton game, I think was the final nail in the coffin for Dean, and it proved to be so. And I wasn't really too sure who we were going to get in. And for us I only would have got rid of Dean Smith if there was a good enough replacement and a step up. And at the time, I wasn't sure Gerrard is, and I'm still not 100% sure now. But I think it's a big risk bringing him in. And I've watched a couple of interviews, and he has got me a bit excited, and everything that he's saying, he's ambitious, things like that. But it is a big risk because right now we are technically in a relegation battle. Although we are only 11 games in, we are still down there, and we need to pick up wins thick and fast. And I think if he doesn't hit the ground running, it's not going to be looking great for us. And I was very surprised with Dean to quickly take a new job, considering he's been sacked from basically the job of his dreams. So I think it's a big appointment for Norwich. I think he'll do well for them. I'm not sure if they'll have enough to stay up this year, but I think it'll be good. It'll be good at rebuilding them and see what he can do with minimal money. But with us and Gerrard, it's a big risk. But I'm really really hopeful it pays off. And Brighton this week, we'll see what he's about. Although we are only a week into his tenure, so it's going to be difficult to implement his tactics, patterns of play, etc.
Yeah, just on Gerrard, I was really shocked. I understand getting rid of Dean Smith at the end of the day because I think it was like 4 back-to-back losses, was it? And
Wow.
yeah, and for the investment he's had put into the team with the sale of Grealish, I think you were expecting quite big things this year. And to say, you're only 11 games in, but form is been on the slide now for the past few months. Didn't start the league great either. The loss against Watford, but I thought you would have gone for someone with a bit more, I don't know, time in the game, someone a bit more experienced, know what they're going to do. I really think Dean Smith struggled with Villa this season more because of the players you brought in and looking to play a more expansive style of football. And I just don't think that's maybe down to him. But I think at Norwich, I think he's going to do something. I've been hating on Norwich a lot this season. Obviously, they just picked up their first win the other week. But there's something about Dean Smith that when he had Villa these past few years and, he's working with just like Grealish. I know maybe Norwich don't have a player of that quality in the team, but he did very well to keep you guys up for a season and stabilise you. And then the season after where you looked a bit more, last season you looked, pretty different outfit the year before. So I'm interested to see what happens there. And of course, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with Newcastle now because it's not too far away from January, but there's a lot of games still to come, and it's going to be interesting to see how many points Eddie Howe can put on the board before he's able to dip into the transfer window, or is he even going to be there to do it because you don't know what's going to happen with Newcastle.
That's it. It's an interesting appointment, and I like Eddie Howe as a manager. I think he's a good manager, but I'm not too sure if, for me, he's a manager to start a new season where he's got a whole pre-season to implement what he wants to implement and then start from the off. But bringing him halfway into the season, it's going to go one or two ways. They're either going to go down and he's going to get to rebuild him from the Championship, or it's going to be a brilliant appointment and they're going to stay up.
Just to butt in though, he does have one thing in his favour is the fact that he's got a crop of players there who he has managed before. I think Hendrick, Callum Wilson, Ryan Fraser. So he's already, how would you put it? Well, these players know him in and out, and he knows them in and out. So maybe he's going to have them on board straight away. So it's going to be interesting to see how he manipulates the rest of the squad.
I think, that's a very good point. Also, Matt Ritchie, and he does have experience of being in and about those positions. But what's going to be interesting to see is when he gets this kitty of cash in the winter transfer window in the summer, what he does with it, because we know he has a tendency to spend it on a lot of poor to average players.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think people are kind of, they must have forgot because when he brought Bournemouth up, he was really good, man. And, people were touting him for the next England job, the Arsenal job, stuff like that. But obviously he left the job and I swear he was managing someone else, but I can't remember. Probably should have researched that, but I couldn't be out. So, but,
he got sacked from Burnley.
Burnley? But Rod, I am getting in my ear that you were right. He was at Burnley. He went from Bournemouth to Burnley, then he got sacked, and then back to Bournemouth, where he kept the club up for quite a while. But yeah, like we were saying before, he is a bit like, y'all must have thought, because he was a real solid manager. He was touted for some big time jobs, but since leaving Bournemouth, nothing's really happened. So, it's just stagnated, I guess.
And yeah, I think you're right. I think he is gonna do well for them, and he is a very good manager. So it will be interesting to see what he can do with this squad. Albeit right now it is a below average squad, but what he can do with those key players that you mentioned, Wilson, Ritchie, etc., will be interesting.
I'm excited to see Alan St. Maximin under him. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Newcastle go to a 4-4-2 and him on the wing do something pretty special. But yeah, obviously it's going to come down to if he can get the points. I just want to talk, just lastly, talk a bit more on Norwich and what Dean Smith's got. And, where do you think it's probably going to end up going?
I think it's a good appointment, and I still don't think they should have sold Farker, but I think Dean Smith is a good replacement. But we know what they're like at the moment. They're pretty poor, and it's a shame. We mentioned it a few weeks ago. We weren't sure they were going to get their first win, but their first win has now come, and sacking Farker straight away after was a bit mental. But
yeah, it was.
I do think it'll do okay for them, and I think it will be a miracle if he does manage to keep them up. I think it'll be very hard to keep them up. What do you think?
I like a few players in the squad. I'm a big fan of Max Aarons. People hate on Pookie, and I don't think he's the most lethal finisher, but I'm a big fan of the runs he makes. I think he's quite an intelligent player, but just not maybe the most natural in front of goal. I think he might get Norwich out of the bottom three. I think he might be able to keep him up, only because the gap isn't as much as I thought it was going to be coming into his appointment. I am a bit surprised the fact they got rid of Daniel Farker, because he is. We was on a night out the other week and we was talking to some of the boys that we actually rate Farker. Obviously, he's only brought Norwich up and down, but he when you see him in the Championship, he looks like quite a expansive manager, and he tries to play on the front foot. But I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in a bit of a bigger job, to be honest, and with a bit more money to spend. I think he could do quite well. Right then, Rod, let's move on. You want to talk about Tottenham Hotspurs, Rod? What do you want to talk about?
So I think the question on a lot of people's minds are, which Spurs asset do we bring in? Do we bring in Son or do we bring in Kane? And I'm in the boat of bringing in Kane due to the sheer amount of good midfielders out there as it stands in Jota, in Smith Rowe, Gallagher, etc. And Kane, for me, will be a placeholder to bring in Ronaldo in a few weeks. Obviously, we know the upcoming Spurs fixtures are Leeds, Burnley, Brentford, and Norwich. And I think Kane scoring 4, albeit against some farmers the other day, will put him in good spirits. And I think it is going to be, he will start firing again in the Premier League. And we know he wants Kane to be in and around that box. He doesn't want him dropping off. So I think Kane's going to be a very good choice in the coming weeks. But Son as well. If you already have Son, then good on you. But for me, there are too many midfielders who are fitting the bracket of quality at the moment.
Yeah, I personally already got Son, and I'm probably not going to move from him. I do think he's probably going to be the main man under Conte. I just something about Kane, man. Even I don't know. He's a one-season wonder, man. That's all I can say. It just doesn't look switched on to me. I know he scored against fucking those farmers the other night, but I think you could have stuck Eric Dyer up there, and he could have done it. To be honest, I haven't actually seen the goals, so if he did score any absolute quality goals, I'm obviously talking out my arse. But yeah, I think if you're looking at Spurs, I think you got to look at Son. I do think he's probably the better choice. I think he probably suits Conte a bit more than Kane, because I just don't see Kane as a sort of forward who's going to work hard enough for him. I don't think he's got the speed. Like Lukaku, he might not work as hard, but he's got that explosive pace to get through when the counter attacks. I just think Son's really suited to him. Great dribbler, great finisher. I think and even with the Kane goals which come, I think Son's going to be getting assists for most of them. So I'm interested to see, though, Rod, what's going to happen with Kane.
I think also, I know once again it was only internationals, but we've got to go off the games that he has played since during the international break. And he scored a hat-trick in the game against Albania, then 4 against San Marino. And it was a perfect hat-trick in the game against Albania. So the final goal was a scissor kick into the top corner, so it was quite a good hat trick. And I think he's going to take confidence from those goals, and I think he's going to show it in the Premier League under the management of Antonio Conte.
It's hard for me to watch England, like, personally, because of, like, the groups they always seem to be in for qualifying, where seems like they get San Marino every time, and I'm pretty sure, if my geography is correct, like, San Marino is, like, the equivalent to, like, a little town in bloody Italy. It's tiny. It's like picking the team it's like picking your local team growing up to play against England. You know what's going to happen. You're going to get absolutely smacked. And it's just, it's hard to grade him off that. Like, it was kind of like Villa at the start of the season. They didn't have too many difficult fixtures to start with, and I wasn't sure how to judge them. And then by the time they did get some tricky fixtures, they kind of went on downhill, so you could picture where they are. Whereas Kane, he hasn't really done much in the Prem. I missed this game against Everton, to be fair. So I'm not too sure what happened in it. Maybe Kane was brilliant.
Spurs were poor.
They were poor. I bet Kane was poor as well, because he just doesn't look switched on in the Prem, and it's going to be hard for me to go, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go all in on Kane when he's only scored against some shitty international teams. No offense if you're from those places. It's just the quality of football is nowhere near the level of the Prem, and it's hard to judge him off that.
Obviously, yeah, you're right in some respects, and I do think I think Spurs assets are going to be needed for the next month of fixtures, and then looking to go on to the United run, where United have a very, very good run for weeks, and hopefully you manage to overturn a form.
I doubt that, because it looks like we're going to keep Ollie, so it's going to be hard. But Rod, can you talk to me about your transfers in the upcoming weeks, or especially into this one? Is Kane the only guy you're eyeing up, or is there someone else?
Well, there's two ways it's going to go. I'm either taking a hit this week to bring in Jota and then a 4.5 million striker and Kane for Antonio, Vardy and Mbeumo, or I don't take a hit, keep Mbeumo in. He has got Newcastle, so I'm not too disappointed with that, and then bring Kane in for Antonio and a 4.5 million striker for Vardy. I think Kane he's definitely coming in for me, and it's whether I go Jota this week or I go Jota next week, because it's rumoured that Firmino's out till mid-December, and we know obviously he does like Jota, and Jota will play up front, so that's something to bear in mind. But how are you seeing it, Chelsea? Because you are 98 points behind me, so you need to start climbing, my friend.
Oh, is that how we're doing it this week? Is it slandering me? I'm about, to be honest, Rod. I'll be in front of you by the end of the season. That's all that matters. 98 points be easy to catch up for me. I do that in my sleep. But I'm not in a real position of strength at the moment. I feel like I've got a real solid team, and the fixtures at the moment kind of going my way. I think I'm going to have some pretty decent weeks coming up. With my squad, it's like the only thing that's really screwed me over is Rob Sanchez getting sent off. I was looking at bringing in Ben Foster, but against United, it's just, man, to be honest, I could see him keeping a clean sheet, but it's either him or Steele, sorry, I already have Steele, and I just feel like maybe keeping the transfer might be a bit more handy. Steele, who I had anyway as the backup for Sanchez, is going to play against Villa, and it's going to be interesting because Villa under the tutelage, what's that word? of the new manager, Steven Gerrard. It's going to be interesting if they get a new manager bounce. I think you are right about Jota. I think he's, for his price, is a real decent pickup in the midfield. I think he's 7.5 million, if I'm correct. Jota, yeah, 7.5 million. I think that's a really solid pickup for basically a number 9. Yeah, I've got Son. I'm pretty comfortable with him. For me, it's going to be in the upcoming game weeks. Can I get rid of Demarai Gray potentially? Maybe an Mbeumo and maybe even an Antonio. It's just judging how things are going and what I'm really feeling.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. Right, Rod. Let's get into the upcoming fixtures. It's a bit of a juicy one, I can't lie. We've got some real interesting games. Can see some teams if they can bounce back or not. I doubt it.
Just quickly looking at the fixtures, we have 6 fixtures at 3 p.m. So a lot of our fantasy players are going to be playing.
Yeah, and if you want to watch those 3 p.m. kickoffs, you can, unless you do some pretty fishy stuff, which we definitely do not around here. Let's get into the half-12 kickoff, Rod. It's Leicester against Chelsea. Leicester at home. You never bat the early kickoff, you say, Rod.
Oh, Salah, of course.
But I think Leicester can do them.
I don't think you're wrong. I think they've got a good chance. Chelsea could be with Werner and Lukaku though, so that is something to bear in mind. But if I had to predict it, I do see it being a draw. I'm going to go for 1-1. As we know, Chelsea, they're not the most attacking their teams, and I think Leicester would nullify. I will go for a.
You're going to go for a 1-1, was that, Rod? You cut out a little bit there.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 1-1.
Right, tidy. I think that Leicester are going to do it. Obviously, I wasn't very impressed against them against Burnley. Probably should have been a lot more, but Chelsea, I don't know. Something about them. They've been playing poorly, in my opinion, but getting a result still, which is obviously they always go. It's a good sign if you're playing bad, getting points. But I mean, I don't think it's that great of a sign if you're playing bad, man. You want to get that form up. I just think Leicester, obviously, after the Arsenal defeat, they're going to be pretty pissed off. So there was another game after the Arsenal game, wasn't there? Or was that last game week? I find it hard to remember. Yes, they drew 1-1 with Leeds away. So yeah, I just think they're going to rebound at home here. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Leicester win. We move to the 3 o'clock, Rod. It's your team, Steven Gerrard's Barmy Army against the wizard man, Graham Potter from Hogwarts. What are you saying?
Yeah, of course. It's. I will be watching this game somehow. I will not say how, as I don't want our video to get demonetized.
Not going to be in the stadium, but going to fly to America to watch it on NBC Sports. Yeah. Go on then.
They are without Robert Sanchez, but there are rumours we are going to be without Douglas Luiz, Nakamba. So it's going to be interesting to see who Gerrard does play in that midfield. And I don't know how I see it going because obviously a lot of our players have been on international duty. So he's not really going to have had time to work with them. And it's very difficult to instill tactics quickly. So I think we're not going to see a true reflection of Steven Gerrard's game. But hopefully we have that new manager bounce. And usually I'm quite pessimistic, but I'm going to be optimistic and go for a 2-1 Villa. Although Brighton this year are a very good outfit, so I probably will be really unprepared.
You're a wizard, Graham. You're going to absolutely batter Villa, is what I think. I think you could be looking at a 3-1 Brighton winner here, away from home. I've just been really impressed with them. Potter, man, how he's not at one of the big sides already. Man, if I was United, I'd bounce on Potter because they were apparently willing to accept Conte plays that way. Different systems, but with the back five. So I would have gone and got Potter if you're even considering Conte, just because of, I mean, look at the brilliant job he's doing. But yeah, I think maybe 3-1 Brighton in this. Moving on to the game which will be showed. Oh, wow. There's a couple games which could be showed last on Match of the Day. But a potential one, it's Burnley against Crystal Palace, Rod. I'm going to kick this one off. Palace is going to do them. I think 2-0 Crystal Palace away. And I think some fans are going to be calling for Sean Dyche's head, Rod.
I'm not too sure on that, as they seem to have stuck with Dyche over the last 15 million years, so I think they'll stick with him for at least another season. But this is a 3 p.m. game in a nutshell. I have been pleasantly surprised by Crystal Palace this year, and obviously they elected Vieira to be a manager who also had little experience, so hopefully Gerrard does do well. But not speaking about Gerrard, speaking about this game, I'm going to go for a Palace win because they have impressed me. I'm going to go for a 2-1. It's not going to be an easy win, as we saw Burnley put up a big fight against Chelsea last week. I think Palace may just edge it.
Yeah, but with 18th position with 8 points, it's getting to the time. But Dyche always pulls out the bag, so I wouldn't be surprised. Moving on to Eddie Howe's first game at Newcastle, playing a Brentford side who aren't particularly in a good form at the moment. Couple of disappointing losses recently for Brentford. Looking at the results, they lost against Norwich, Burnley, Leicester, and Chelsea. So that's 4 on the bounce. Their last win coming up against West Ham United on the 3rd of October. Rod, how do you see this one going?
See it. I don't know. It's a difficult one. Eddie Howe and Thomas Frank. It's going to be a good matchup. Newcastle are at home. I don't know. This is quite a hard one to predict because Brentford have been poor as of late, and Newcastle do have a new manager. So I'm going to have to go. I think I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, but I think it's going to be quite an entertaining draw with hopefully Newcastle looking to play some expansive football, and Brentford hopefully countering that with some more so attacking football.
Yeah, I think Newcastle can get the job done. I think they could maybe get Brentford going a bit forward too much and maybe hit them on a counter-attack with Alan St. Maximin. It's going to be interesting as well now. Eddie's first game at St. James's Park where, the crowd have been pretty rowdy since the new owners come in. So I'm going to go with a 1-0 Newcastle win. Takes us on to the Norwich-Southampton game where your man Dean Smith has got a tough job in his hands, in my opinion, because he's playing a pretty informed Southampton team who've won 3 of their last 5, losing only against Chelsea away 3-1, and the draw coming against Burnley. How do you see this game going, Rod? I think it's going to be a really hard one for Dean Smith to start with.
It looks like the 3 p.m. is about the new managers because that's three fixtures, 3 new managers, and it would just be typical Aston Villa that our old manager who lost to Southampton in his final game to get sacked will beat Southampton in his new first game with his new club. But that probably is wishful thinking, as Southampton have been good and we know what Livramento can do from that right back position. So
yeah,
I am. Thing is, the new manager bounce. I don't know. I'm gonna go for a 1-0 Southampton. Hopefully a clean sheet from Livramento and an assist or a goal would be lovely.
Yeah, I'm gonna back that as well, Rod. I'm gonna go with a 1-0 Southampton. I think it could be more, but maybe under Dean Smith they might be a bit harder to play against Norwich. You never know. Takes us on to Watford against Manchester United at Vicarage Road. I've actually been pretty proud of us because we haven't talked about United too much in this episode. So I'll let you kick it off again, Rod. How do you see this game going?
I think with the cycling GK in goal, anything can happen. And
penalty the other day.
He did, and it was a good save to be fair to him. And he scored on fantasy, so it would be typical fantasy luck though for them to play Backman in the next game. We know how he.
I think Foster's number 1, so I think that's how it's looking like it's going to play out now.
So because I've got him actually playing this week, but this is a game you should be winning, and if Villa lose on the weekend and Watford win, I'm going to be very concerned.
I swear we lose together, United and Villa. Like every week, it's been me and you going out on the piss, just like mooning about football, basically. Maybe it can be a change of results this week. Who knows?
Well, I think if both of our teams win, Chelsea, there can only be one thing: lose game under Ranieri. So I am going to go for a 2-0 United win.
I see Villa losing, and for some reason, I'm not very hopeful with United either. I think we're going to see the return of McFred, where we play 2 defensive midfielders who aren't defensive midfielders against a team we should be beating. Yeah, I just don't know how many games Ollie's got to lose before he loses his job. I feel real shitty because I really like Ollie. I think he's, despite all the legend shit as well, he just seems like a real nice bloke, to be honest. And I think it's kind of sad that he's overstayed his welcome like this. And I think he's going to overstay his welcome once again, Rod. I think Watford are actually going to get a result against us, maybe on a counter-attack somewhere. I'm not sure if Luke Shaw's fit. I'm pretty sure he is. I think he might have trouble with Ismail Assar down the down our left-hand side, down their right-hand side. I'm going to go with a Watford 2-1 victory, winning it late, coming from behind potentially. And that moves us on to Wolves against West Ham, Rod. I think this is actually a game which is probably going to go under the radar, but it's actually a really interesting game. I think it's going to be a real interesting midfield battle with, the likes of Ruben Neves and Souček, Rice. I think it's going to be quite an interesting game, and I think it's going to be a rather even game. But I think I am going to side with West Ham as they look like the better team this season, but out of the two sides are more clinical in front of goal.
I do have to agree with you. The midfield battle is going to be definitely one to look at with the names you mentioned. And Wolves, they've looked better as of late going forward, but West Ham defensively they do look resolute. But without Ogbonna, who tore his ACL, which is a big loss for them, I think they're going to be playing Mr. Dawson at the back, who's
Dawson and Zuma. That's actually a pretty decent pairing as well.
Like you said, I do think this is definitely going to be a game to watch, and it's going to be good to catch up with it on match of day. But I do see West Ham just edging it, and I'm going to go for a 2-1, and hopefully Antonio stays quiet.
Yeah, I think maybe even a 2-0 West Ham, just because I'm not sure if they're going to let Wolves dictate the game like they want to. But I have been impressed with both teams this season so far. But we move on to the game of the day, Rod. Actually, I think I prefer the Leicester-Chelsea game, but Liverpool against Arsenal, how's it going to happen?
Liverpool against Arsenal. Two teams in decent form.
Yeah, really good form. Besides Liverpool.
Obviously, Liverpool will be without Firmino. Whether they play Jota or Origi, that will be interesting.
They're coming off the... I forgot to say, they're coming off the West Ham defeat, which was a really good game.
Very much so, and Mane did take a knock in the international break, so hopefully he is okay. And Arsenal are in red-hot form. Arteta's process is finally coming to fruition. It's nice for this game to be at 5:30. Finally, a decent game in the evening on the Saturday. So exactly that. Instead of watching Rob Sanchez get sent off, hopefully be watching Salah score a hat-trick with a Pilsner. I am going to go for a Liverpool win. I'm going to go for a 3-1 win. But I think Salah won't score. I think he'll maybe get an assist, but I don't think he'll score.
Fair enough. I think this game's going to be a little bit more of Arsenal old. Just feel like they haven't really been under it since the defeat since the back-to-back defeats at the start of the season, where I think Liverpool can really put it on them. And it's going to be interesting to see what sort of side they are now, because before they were just crumbling and just not even trying. But I do think it's going to be a bit more of the same. I'm going to go 3-0 Liverpool. And I am going to go with a Salah goal. Can see him cutting in on his left and just beating Ramsdale. But it moves us on to the Sunday. It is the Citizens, Manchester City, going up against Everton, 2:00 at the Etihad Stadium, Rod. It's going to be an interesting game because of Rafa. He hasn't been in the greatest of form since joining Everton. It's going to be, quite optimistic. I don't know how you can be optimistic as an Everton fan going into this game.
I think you're right. They've been on a poor run of form, and I think it could get worse. Calvert-Lewin is still out, which is a big loss for them. I think it must be on about 9 or 10 weeks he's been out now. It's been a while.
And they're still missing Doucouré.
Still without Doucouré, yeah. They have got rid of midfielder's a big one without Doucouré. They look lethargic. Townsend's not been what he was at the start of the year. And we know what City are like. City, Sunday, all their players will be rested. Hopefully no Pep Roulette. So I do see it winning comfortably, and I'm going to go for a 3-0. No, I'm going to go for a 2-0, actually. I'm going to go 2-0.
Yeah, fair enough. I think 2-0 is probably a fair result. I'm going to go with that as well. And I think a player to bring in for this game would be Riyad Mahrez. I could just see him doing something. Last game of the weekend, 4:30, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's Spurs up against Leeds. A really, I think it's going to be a hard game for Leeds once again. They've really struggled this season. The Bielsa ball is not flowing at all. I think he's finding out that he probably cannot play this style with the quality of players he's got, but he'll do it anyway. And I think Spurs are going to get their first Premier League win under Antonio Conte. It's going to be quite a convincing one as well, I think. I think it's going to be 3-0 Spurs. I think Leeds are just set up for them to hit on the counter-attack.
I think at home to Leeds, this is a game Antonio Conte will be looking at and looking at that he has to win, really. And Leeds are in a poor run of form. And I think you're right, where Bielsa, he can't play the style of football he wants with this squad. But I think they're still without Bamford, which is a huge loss, instrumental this year. And they're solely relying on Rafinha. And if you keep Rafinha, you keep the Leeds quiet. So I do think this is a game Spurs are going to pick up some confidence. I think they're going to win convincingly. And hopefully Kane does score. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 Spurs. But I think it's going to be quite an open game, as we've seen what Leeds are like.
Yeah, man. I'm quite looking forward to that game. I think that's a really nice game to finish off the weekend, which has got quite a few quality games and some, going underneath the radar. But that's the end of this week's show. Be sure to check us out again next week. We make sure at least we've got a preview show up for every week. We try and do even if we only putting up one show, we try and review last week's fixtures. Obviously, we didn't get to it last week because of the international break. So I do apologise for that, not being as consistent as we probably should be. But be sure to leave a like, comment below, and subscribe if you would please. It means a lot to us. We keep making these videos, really enjoying it, chatting with the boys. We'd be doing it anyway, but we just thought we'd do it on YouTube. We're having a blast on here. So, thanks for joining me again, Rod.
No, I'm pleased to join you, and it's always nice to discuss football. And like you said, there are some very, very interesting games this weekend, both fantasy related and just if you like football. So it's definitely going to be good to keep an eye on fixtures I wouldn't really look at.
Yeah, thank you, Rod. So until next week, we'll leave you here. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Los Kids.